Hello everyone. Tonight we start with a punch in the face from history. Imagine this. You're not in your cozy bed, scrolling through X or dodging notifications. No, you're waking up in a place so vile, so suffocating, that even your worst Monday morning feels like a beach holiday. Before you pull that blanket tighter, hit that like button, drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is there. Really, it's awesome knowing who's joining us from across the globe. Spill the tea. Now close your eyes. Well, not literally. You're still watching, and picture this. Your eyelids flutter open, but there's no morning light, no chirping birds or buzzing phone. Instead, a damp, sour stench slaps you awake, like rotting meat mixed with moldy straw. Your body aches, sprawled on a stone floor, so cold it feels like it's sucking the warmth from your bones. You try to move, but your wrists are heavy, chained to a wall with iron cuffs that bite into your skin. The air is thick, humid, like breathing through a wet rag. Somewhere in the darkness, water drips. Plink, plink, plink. Each sound drilling into your skull. Welcome to an ancient prison, my friend. This is an Alcatraz with its tidy cells and scheduled meals. This is the underbelly of history, where humanity's worst impulses built cages to break souls. You're in a place like the Tullianum, Rome's oldest prison, carved into the earth beneath the city around 600 BCE. It's not a prison in the modern sense. No rehabilitation, no parole hearings. It's a pit, a literal hole, where the unwanted are dumped to rot. The Romans called it the carcer, but don't let the fancy Latin fool you. This is where they toss traitors, enemies, and anyone who pissed off the wrong senator. You're not here for a fair trial. You're here to disappear. Your stomach growls. But food? Good luck. If you're lucky, a guard might toss down a crust of stale bread, crawling with weevils. You'd gag, but hunger makes you desperate. You shove it in your mouth, the grit crunching between your teeth, the taste like sour dirt. Compare that to your modern life. When was the last time you complained about a soggy takeout burger? Down here, that burger's a 5-star feast. You're chewing on survival, and it tastes like regret. The darkness is suffocating, broken only by the flicker of a distant torch. Your eyes strain, catching glimpses of walls slick with moss and something darker, blood, maybe, or worse. The Tullianum was infamous for its executions, especially for high-profile prisoners like Vercingetorix, the Gallic chieftain who dared defy Julius Caesar. After his defeat in 46 BCE, he was paraded through Rome, then strangled in this very pit. Imagine the echoes of his final gasps lingering in the air, mixing with the moans of other prisoners. You're not alone down here. Shapes shift in the shadows. Other wretches, their eyes hollow, their voices rasping prayers or curses. One of them, a wiry man with matted hair, mutters about the gods abandoning him. You want to scream at him to shut up, but his despair is contagious, seeping into your bones. Your body protests every movement. The chains are too short to let you stand, so you're hunched, your spine screaming, your legs numb. The cold stone leaches heat from your body, and your breath comes in shallow bursts, each one tasting of decay. You think of your modern life, cramped airplane seats, endless Zoom calls, and laugh bitterly. Those are nothing. Down here, discomfort is a language, and it's shouting at you. The Romans didn't care about ergonomics. They designed these prisons to crush your spirit before your body gave out. Let's talk about the guards. They're not your friendly neighborhood cops. These guys are brutes, paid to keep you down, not to help. One stomps by, his boots echoing like thunder. He's got a face like a bulldog, scarred and sneering, and he spits in your direction just for fun. Still alive, he growls, his voice like gravel. You want to snap back, but your throat's too dry, your courage buried under fear. These guards aren't here to rehabilitate. They're here to make sure you suffer. In ancient Rome, prison wasn't a punishment. It was a prelude to something worse, like execution or exile. The Tullianum was a holding cell for death, a place to let you stew in your own terror before the end. Now, let's add a little color to this nightmare. Meet Livia, a prisoner chained a few feet away. She's a thief, or so she claims, caught stealing from a temple. Her hair's a tangled mess, her face smudged with dirt, but her eyes burn with defiance. "You think this is bad," she whispers, her voice hoarse but sharp. "Wait till they drag you to the arena." She's seen things, executions, betrayals, prisoners turning on each other for a scrap of food. Livia's your guide to this underworld, a cynical survivor who knows the rules. Keep your head down, don't trust anyone, and pray the guards forget you exist. But her stories make your skin crawl. She talks about prisoners left to starve, their bodies left to rot in the chains. The smell, she says, is worse than anything you're breathing now. The hours crawl by, marked only by the drip of water and the occasional scream from deeper in the prison. Your mind starts to play tricks. Is that a rat skittering across your foot, or just your imagination? You jerk, the chains rattling, and Livia chuckles darkly. "First day's always the worst," she says. Or maybe the second. Her sarcasm is a lifeline, but it's also a reminder. You're not getting out. The Tullianum wasn't built for escape. Its walls are thick, its entrances guarded, its location deep underground. Even if you broke free, where would you go? Rome's a maze of alleys and enemies, and you're a nobody now. Let's zoom out for a second. Why were these prisons so brutal? Ancient societies didn't have the resources or the inclination for modern incarceration. Feeding and housing prisoners was expensive, and sympathy was in short supply. In Rome, justice was performative, a spectacle to keep the masses in line. Prisons like the Tullianum were less about punishment and more about erasure. You weren't meant to reform. You were meant to vanish, either through death or despair. Compare that to today's world, where even the worst prisons have oversight, however flawed. Back then, the only oversight was the gods, and they weren't exactly taking complaints. Your body's starting to shut down now, exhaustion warring with panic. You think of home, your bed, your music, your life. It feels like a dream, something you made up to survive this moment. Livia's voice cuts through your haze. "Don't sleep," she warns. The rats wait for that. Her words jolt you, your heart pounding. Sleep? In this place? You'd rather stay awake forever. But your eyelids are heavy, your body betraying you. The cold, the hunger, the fear, it's all too much. You're not sure how long you've been here. Hours? Days? Time doesn't exist in the Tullianum. There's only the pit, the chains, and the creeping certainty that you're never leaving. As you fight to stay awake, Livia leans closer, her breath warm against the dank air. "You want to know the worst part?" she says, her voice low, almost gleeful. "This is just the beginning." Her words hang in the air, a promise of horrors to come. You want to ask what she means, but your voice is gone, swallowed by the darkness. The dripping water, the distant screams, the weight of the chains, they're all you have now. And somewhere deep in your gut, you know she's right. This pit isn't the end. It's the warm-up. So, tell me, how long could you last in a place like this before you started begging for the end? Or maybe you're tougher than that, curled up in your modern bed, thinking you could handle it. But as that torchlight fades and the shadows close in, one question lingers. What's worse than waking up in a prison like this? Stick around, because the answer's coming, and it's going to make this pit feel like a holiday. Your body's a wreck, every muscle screaming from the hours, or is it days, spent chained in that dank Roman pit. The memory of the Tullianum's cold stone and Livia's biting sarcasm lingers. But now you're somewhere else, somewhere worse. Your eyes snap open, or maybe they've been open all along, stinging from the acrid smoke curling through the air. No more dripping water or echoing moans. Instead, a low, guttural hum vibrates through the ground, like the earth itself is groaning. You're sprawled on a bed of straw, so filthy it crackles under your weight, the sharp ends jabbing into your skin like tiny needles. The air is thick with the stench of sulfur and sweat, so heavy it coats your tongue, making every breath feel like a gulp of poison. Where are you? Not Rome anymore. This is a new kind of hell, and it's got a name. The Ergastulum, a sprawling slave prison on a rural estate in ancient Campania, circa 100 BCE. You try to sit up, but your arms tremble, weak from hunger and whatever ordeal brought you here. The straw scratches your palms, and something skitters away, a cockroach, maybe, or something bigger. Your vision adjusts to the dim light, a sickly glow from oil lamps hanging high on the walls. You're in a long, low chamber, its ceiling so close you'd crack your skull if you stood upright. The walls are rough-hewn stone, streaked with grime and what looks like claw marks. Rows of wooden benches line the room, each one crowded with figures, men, women, some barely more than kids. All hunched, their faces gaunt, their eyes empty. Chains clink as they shift, the sound a constant, grating rhythm. This isn't a prison for traitors or thieves. This is a workhouse for the enslaved, a place where bodies are broken for profit, not punishment. Your stomach lurches, not just from hunger, but from the realization sinking in. You're one of them now, aren't you? A slave, or at least treated like one, dumped into this festering hole to toil until you drop. You pat your clothes, tattered rags, barely clinging to your frame, and feel a rough iron collar around your neck, its edges biting into your skin. It's not just a restraint, it's a brand, marking you as property. You tug at it, but it's locked tight, the metal warm from your body heat, but unyielding. Panic claws at your chest, and you think of your modern life, your phone, your bed, your freedom. It's like a fairy tale now, something you'd laugh at if you weren't so terrified. Imagine whining about a late Uber or a crashed laptop. Down here, those are the stuff of dreams. A shadow looms over you, and you flinch, expecting a guard's fist. Instead, it's a woman, her face weathered but sharp, like a blade honed by years of survival. She's got a crooked nose and eyes that glint with something between pity and contempt. New, huh? She says, her voice low, rasping from the smoky air. Name's Talia. Don't bother telling me yours. Won't matter tomorrow. She's clutching a wooden bowl, its contents a grayish sludge that smells like rancid porridge. She shoves it into your hands. Eat. You'll need it. You stare at the slop, your stomach churning. Tiny black specks float in it. Bugs, maybe, or worse. You hesitate, and Talia snorts. Picky? That's a death sentence here. You force a spoonful down, the taste like wet ash, sticking to your throat. It's not food, it's survival, and it's all you've got. The hum you felt earlier grows louder. And now you hear it for what it is, the clatter of tools, the creak of machinery, the shouts of overseers. You're not just in a prison, you're in a factory of misery. The Ergastulum was the dark heart of Rome's rural estates, where enslaved workers were chained, fed just enough to keep them alive, and forced to labor in fields, mines, or mills. This one, Talia tells you, powers a grain mill, the kind that grinds wheat for Rome's bread. But it's not oxen turning the massive stones. It's people. People like you. They don't care if you break, Talia says, wiping her mouth with a grimy hand. There's always more where you came from. You're about to ask her more when a whip cracks, the sound slicing through the air like a blade. The workers around you tense, heads bowing instinctively. A man strides into the chamber, his silhouette framed by the lamplight. He's no ordinary guard. He's the Villicus, the overseer, a freedman who's traded his own chains for a whip and a sneer. His tunic is stained but finer than yours, and his boots crunch the straw as he paces. Up, you lazy dogs, he bellows, his voice thick with authority. Sun's rising and Rome's hungry. His whip snaps again, this time catching a young man who's too slow to stand. The boy cries out, clutching his back, but the Villicus just laughs, a sound like breaking glass. You scramble to your feet, your legs shaky, your heart pounding. Talia grabs your arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Don't look at him, she hisses, and don't fall behind. You're herded out of the chamber, the collar chafing your neck as you shuffle in a line of workers. The tunnel opens into a courtyard, and the sudden sunlight blinds you, stabbing your eyes like needles. You squint, catching glimpses of the world above, endless fields of wheat swaying under a merciless sun, a sprawling villa in the distance, its white walls gleaming like a taunt. The air out here is fresher, but it's laced with dust and the sharp tang of manure. Your bare feet sink into the dirt, still warm from yesterday's heat, and every step kicks up clouds that cling to your skin. The other workers move like ghosts, their faces blank, their bodies bent from years of this. You're new, but you can feel it already. This place will grind you down, too. The Villicus leads you to the mill, a massive stone structure that looms like a sleeping giant. The grinding stones are enormous, each one taller than you, and they're connected to wooden beams that workers push hour after hour to keep them turning. Your job, Talia explains, is to push. That's it. Push the beam, keep the stone moving, don't stop. Sounds simple, right? Like a gym workout with your Bluetooth earbuds pumping motivational beats. Except here, there's no music, no water breaks, just the crack of the whip and the promise of pain if you falter. You take your place at the beam. It's wood splintered and slick with sweat from countless hands. You grip it, your palms already stinging, and start pushing. The stone groans, resisting every inch, and your shoulders burn within minutes. The other workers grunt and strain beside you, their breaths ragged, their eyes fixed on the ground. You try to focus, but the collar digs into your neck, the dust chokes your lungs, and the Villicus's shadow is never far away. Hours pass, or maybe it's just minutes. Time blurs in the ergastulum. Your arms tremble, your back screams, and sweat stings your eyes. Talia's beside you, her face set in a grim mask, but she keeps moving, her strength a quiet defiance. You want to give up, to collapse, and let the Villicus do whatever he wants, but her presence keeps you going. She survived this day after day, and if she can, maybe you can too. But then, a scream cuts through the mill. A worker has fallen, his leg caught under a beam. The Villicus is on him in seconds, his whip lashing down, each strike drawing blood. The man begs, but it's no use. The other workers don't stop, don't even look. Their fear a palpable thing. You want to help, to scream, to do something, but Talia's hand tightens on the beam. Don't, she whispers. You'll be next. The day drags on, each moment a battle against your own body. Your hands blister, your throat burns, and your mind starts to fray. You think of your modern life, endless emails, crowded subways, petty dramas, and it feels like a cruel joke. Those were nothing. This is suffering, raw and unyielding, the kind that strips you to your core. The Villicus doesn't care about your pain. The estate's owner, some faceless aristocrat sipping wine in that distant villa, doesn't even know you exist. You're a cog in Rome's machine, and cogs don't get mercy. As the sun dips low, casting long shadows across the mill, the Villicus finally calls a halt. You collapse against the beam, your body a quivering wreck. Talia slumps beside you, her breath ragged but steady. You made it, she says, her voice barely a whisper. First day's the worst. You want to laugh, to cry, but all you can do is nod. The workers are herded back to the underground chamber. The straw beds a cruel mockery of rest. You're given another bowl of sludge, and this time you don't hesitate. You eat, every bite a defiance, a promise to survive another day. But as you lie there, the straw jabbing your skin, the collar pressing against your throat, you hear something new, a low rhythmic chant from the workers around you. It's not a song, not a prayer, but something older, a plea to gods who don't listen. Talia's eyes meet yours, and for the first time, you see fear in them. They're choosing tomorrow, she says, her voice flat. Choosing who goes to the mines. The mines. You've heard whispers of them, a place even worse than this, where the air is poison and the darkness is absolute. Your heart sinks. Surviving the mill was one thing, but the mines? That's a death sentence. You curl up on the straw, your body aching, your mind racing. The chant grows louder. The workers' voices a haunting chorus. You want to block it out to dream of your old life, but the ergastulum doesn't allow dreams. It's a machine, and you're its fuel, burning out a little more each day. Talia's words echo in your head. First day's the worst. But you know she lied. Tomorrow will be worse. And the day after that? You don't want to think about it. You close your eyes, the chant filling your ears, and one question gnaws at you. How do you keep going when every step pulls you closer to the end? Or maybe, just maybe, the real question is, what's it like to be chosen for something even worse than this? The air is no longer thick with dust or sulfur, but sharp, salty, and biting, like a slap from the sea. Your eyes sting as you blink awake, your body sprawled across splintered wood that creaks beneath you. The ground sways, a sickening lurch that sends your stomach roiling. You're not on solid earth anymore. The darkness around you is alive with groans, not just human, but the protests of timber and rope straining against an unseen force. A faint, rhythmic slap of water echoes, and the stench of brine, vomit, and unwashed bodies clogs your nose. You're on a ship, aren't you? But this isn't some sleek cruise liner with buffet lines and Wi-Fi. This is a floating prison, a Greek trireme bound for a penal colony in the Aegean, circa 400 BCE. Welcome to your new nightmare, where the sea itself is your jailer. Your hands fumble, expecting chains, but instead you find coarse rope binding your wrists, the fibers cutting into your skin with every tug. You're wedged between other prisoners, their bodies pressed so close you can feel their heat, their ragged breaths syncing with yours. The deck is slick with seawater and something stickier, blood, maybe, or worse. You try to shift, to ease the ache in your spine, but there's no room, no relief. The wood beneath you is warped, digging into your hips, and every sway of the ship sends a jolt of pain through your bruised body. You think of your modern life, cramped bus rides, endless deadlines, and almost laugh. Those were inconveniences. This is torment, a rocking, rolling hell, where even the air hates you. A voice cuts through the darkness, low and gravelly, with an edge of bitter humor. Still breathing, new fish? You squint, making out a figure crouched nearby, his face half-lit by a swinging lantern. He's lean, almost skeletal, with a beard tangled like seaweed and eyes that glint with a mix of defiance and despair. Name's Darius, he says, spitting onto the deck. Don't get comfy. This tub's no holiday. He's a rower, like you're about to be, one of the countless souls chained to the oars of this warship-turned prison. His hands are calloused, scarred from years at the benches, and he nods at the ropes around your wrists. They'll swap those for shackles soon. Enjoy the rope while it lasts. You want to ask where you're going, but your throat's raw, scorched by the salty air. Before you can try, a shout from above decks makes you flinch. Rowers up. The voice is harsh, clipped, belonging to a man who's used to being obeyed. Boots thud closer, and a figure looms over you. A marine, clad in leather armor, his face weathered by sun and sea. He's holding a whip, its leather tip glistening with salt water, and his eyes scan the prisoners like a predator sizing up prey. Move, or I'll flay you, he barks, cracking the whip against the deck. The sound is a gunshot in the confined space, and Darius is already scrambling to his feet, dragging you with him. Don't dawdle, he mutters. They love an excuse. You're shoved toward a narrow bench, one of dozens lining the trireme's belly. The rowing deck is a claustrophobic maze of wood and bodies, the air heavy with a reek of sweat and fear. You're chained to the bench, the iron shackles colder than the ropes, their weight dragging at your wrists. The oar in front of you is massive, its handle worn smooth by countless hands, and it feels like trying to lift a tree trunk. Darius is on the bench beside you, his movements practiced, almost mechanical. Pull when they say, he whispers. Stop when they say. And pray we don't hit a storm. His words are a lifeline, but they're laced with a grim truth. You're not just a prisoner. You're the engine of this ship, and engines don't rest. The drum starts, a deep, relentless thud that vibrates through the deck, setting the rhythm for the rowers. Pull, the Marine shouts, and you heave at the oar, your arms screaming as the wood resists. The ship lurches forward, the oars slicing through the water with a collective groan. Your shoulders burn, your wrists chafe against the shackles, and the bench digs into your thighs with every stroke. The other rowers move in sync, their faces grim, their breaths ragged. Some are silent, others mutter prayers to gods you don't recognize. The drum keeps pounding, a heartbeat for this floating prison, and you're trapped in its pulse. Hours blur into a haze of pain and exhaustion. The sea spray seeps through the deck, soaking your rags, and the cold sinks into your bones. Your hands blister, the oars handle slick with sweat and blood. Darius keeps rowing, his face set, but he's not untouched by this. You catch him wincing, his knuckles white around the oar. "Used to be a merchant," he says during a rare pause, his voice barely audible over the creaking ship. "One bad deal, and here I am." You try to answer, but the words won't come. What's your story? Does it even matter? In this place, you're not a person. You're a pair of hands, a set of muscles. And when those give out, you're nothing. The Marine paces the deck, his whip cracking whenever someone falters. You see it happen. A boy, barely 16, slumps over his strength gone. The Marine's on him in seconds, the whip lashing down, each strike drawing a scream. The boy begs, his voice breaking, but the Marine doesn't stop until he's back at his oar, blood trickling down his back. You want to look away, to block it out, but Darius's eyes meet yours, hard and unyielding. "Focus," he says. "Or that's you." Your stomach twists, but you grip the oar tighter, pulling with everything you've got. The drum keeps pounding, the ship keeps moving, and you keep rowing because stopping isn't an option. Let's pause for a second to ground this in history. Greek triremes were warships, but they doubled as transport for prisoners, especially those bound for penal colonies like the quarries of Thassos or the mines of Lorion. These weren't places for rehabilitation. They were death sentences, slow and brutal. Rowing was the first test, a grueling ordeal that weeded out the weak before they even reached the colonies. The rowers, often prisoners or enslaved people, were expendable, fed just enough to keep them pulling, chained to their benches even during storms. If the ship sank, they drowned, still shackled. Compare that to your modern life. Maybe you've grumbled about a long commute or a tough workout. Down here, every stroke is a fight for survival. And the sea doesn't care if you're tired. The day wears on, the drum never stopping, the Marine's whip always ready. Your body's a furnace of pain, every muscle stretched to breaking. The sea's roar is constant, a mocking reminder of your prison's walls. Walls made of water, endless and uncaring. You think of home, of soft beds and warm meals, but it feels like a lie, a story you told yourself to stay sane. Darius's voice pulls you back. "They're watching," he says, nodding toward the Marines. Always watching. You follow his gaze and see it, not just a Marine with a whip, but another, higher up, a captain maybe. His eyes cold and calculating. He's not just watching for weakness. He's choosing, picking who'll survive the journey and who'll be thrown to the sea. As night falls, the drum finally slows, the rowers collapsing against their oars. You're given a crust of bread and a sip of brackish water, the taste like licking a rock. You choke it down, your stomach protesting, but Darius eats like it's a feast. "Savor it," he says, his voice dry. "Might be your last." You're unchained from the bench, but not freed. Ropes tie you to the deck, forcing you to sleep where you sit, the wood your bed, the sea's lullaby your only company. The other prisoners are quiet now, their energy spent, but the tension lingers. You hear whispers, fragments of stories, men who vanished overboard, others who went mad from the endless rocking. Darius leans closer, his breath warm against the cold air. "They say the colony's worse," he murmurs. "Quarries that swallow you whole. You think this is bad." He chuckles, a sound without humor. Wait till you see the stones. You lie back, the deck swaying, the ropes biting your wrists. The stars are hidden by clouds, and the sea's roar feels like it's inside your skull. Your body aches, your mind frays, and Darius's words echo. Wait till you see the stones. You don't know what's waiting at the penal colony, but you know it's not salvation. This ship, this prison, is just the road to something darker, and you're strapped in for the ride. You close your eyes, the ship's creak blending with the prisoner's snores, and one question claws at you. How do you hold on when the journey itself is breaking you? Or maybe the real question is, what's waiting at the end of this sea, and can you survive it? The sea's roar has faded, replaced by a suffocating silence, broken only by the crunch of gravel underfoot. Your body jolts awake, or maybe it never slept. Your senses assaulted by a dry, metallic tang that clings to the air like rust. You're not swaying on a ship anymore, nor chained in a damp pit or grinding away in a mill. Instead, you're standing, barely, on a rocky outcrop, your ankles bound by coarse rope that chafes with every step. The sun blazes overhead, its heat a hammer against your skull, baking the earth until it cracks like old leather. Your mouth is so dry your tongue feels like a stone, and your skin prickles, already burning under the relentless light. This is no ordinary prison. This is the quarries of Thasos, a Greek penal colony in the Aegean circa 400 BCE, where stone is both your master and your executioner. Your rags are tattered, barely shielding you from the sun, and your feet are raw, cut by the jagged rocks. You're surrounded by other prisoners, their bodies hunched, their faces smeared with dust and despair. The air shimmers with heat, distorting the landscape into a hellscape of white marble cliffs and gaping pits. The sound of metal on stone, clink, 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 rings out, a relentless chorus from workers wielding picks and chisels. You're one of them now, aren't you? A laborer in this sun-scorched purgatory, sentenced to carve marble for temples and statues you'll never see. You think of your modern life, air-conditioned offices, iced coffee, petty arguments over group chats, and it feels like a cruel mirage. Up there, you'd kill for a break. Down here, a break means death. A shadow falls across you, and you look up to see a man, wiry and sunburned, his eyes sharp despite the exhaustion etched into his face. He's holding a chipped water jug, the liquid inside sloshing temptingly. "Drink," he says, thrusting it toward you. "Won't get another till sundown." His voice is rough, like the rocks around you, and his name, he says, is Chores. He's been here longer than most, a survivor of the quarry's brutal arithmetic. Work or die. You grab the jug, the water warm and gritty, tasting of earth and despair. You gulp it down, the liquid barely easing the fire in your throat. Chores watches, his lips twitching in what might be a smile or a grimace. "First day's a killer," he says. Literally. You want to ask what he means, but a shout cuts you off. "Move, you dogs." The voice belongs to an overseer, a hulking figure in a linen tunic, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. He's gripping a staff, its end tipped with bronze, and he swings it like a club, catching a slow prisoner in the ribs. The man crumples, gasping, but the overseer doesn't stop. "Up, or you're food for the vultures," he roars, his voice carrying over the clatter of tools. Chores pulls you along, his hand firm on your arm. "Don't look," he mutters. "Just work." You stumble after him, the ropes around your ankles forcing a shuffling gait, each step a stab of pain through your torn feet. You're led to a pit, a yawning scar in the earth where marble gleams like bone under the sun. Your job is simple but brutal. Chip away at the stone, break it into blocks, haul it to the surface. You're handed a pick, its handle worn and splintered, its iron head dull from overuse. You swing it, the impact jarring your arms, sending shockwaves through your bones. The stone resists, each strike yielding only a few flakes of marble. Your shoulders scream, your hands blister, and the dust rises in clouds, coating your lungs, your eyes, your skin. You cough, the sound lost in the quarry's din, and Chores works beside you, his movements steady but strained. "Pace yourself," he says, "or you'll burn out before noon." The hours grind on, the sun climbing higher, its heat a physical weight. Your body is a furnace, sweat evaporating before it can cool you. The other prisoners labor in silence, their faces masks of resignation. Some are young, others old, but all bear the same marks, scars from whips, burns from the sun, eyes hollowed by hopelessness. You see a woman, her hair matted with dust, collapse against a rock, her pick slipping from her hands. The overseer's on her in seconds, his staff raised, but she doesn't move. She's not defiant, just done, her body giving up before her spirit could. The overseer curses, dragging her away, and you don't need Kiros to tell you she's not coming back. You grip your pick tighter, swinging harder, as if effort can save you from her fate. Let's ground this in history for a moment. The quarries of Thasos were a cornerstone of Greek industry, supplying marble for monuments like the Parthenon. But the labor came at a human cost. Penal colonies like this one were dumping grounds for prisoners, enslaved people, and anyone deemed expendable. The work was lethal. Heat stroke, cave-ins, and exhaustion claimed lives daily, and overseers had no incentive to care. Marble was valuable. Workers were not. Unlike modern prisons, even the harshest ones, there was no pretense of reform here. You were a tool, and when you broke, they found another. Compare that to your world. Maybe you've complained about a tough boss or a long shift. In the quarries, a bad day didn't mean a write-up. It meant a shallow grave. The sun reaches its peak, and the overseers allow a brief pause. You're given another sip of water and a scrap of bread, so dry it crumbles in your mouth. You chew slowly, the act mechanical, your mind numb. Kiros sits beside you, his back against a rock, his eyes scanning the pit. "They're always watching," he says, nodding toward the overseers perched on a ledge above, looking for the weak ones. You follow his gaze and see it, a group of them, pointing, whispering, their faces unreadable. They're not just enforcing work. They're judging, deciding who's worth keeping, who's a liability. Your stomach twists. You're new, untested, and that makes you a target. The work resumes, the clink of picks a relentless pulse. Your body protests, every swing of the pick a battle against collapse. The dust is everywhere now, a second skin clogging your nose, stinging your eyes. You think of home, soft couches, cold drinks, the hum of a fan, and it's like a knife in your chest. That life is gone, replaced by this endless, burning now. Kiros' voice pulls you back. "Don't think," he says, his pick striking the stone. "Thinking's dangerous." He's right. Thinking leads to hope, and hope is a lie in the quarries. You swing again, the rhythm your only anchor, but the weight of it all, sun, stone, fear, presses down, threatening to crush you. Kiros' face is grim, his eyes fixed on the destruction. "Happens every week," he says, his voice flat. "They don't care. Stone's worth more than us." You want to scream, to rage, but your body's too weak, your voice too raw. The overseers are already barking orders, forcing the survivors back to work. You pick up your tool, your hand shaking, and swing again, the clink of metal on stone a mocking echo. The sun hasn't moved, the heat hasn't eased, and the quarry doesn't stop. You're alive, but for how long? Kiros' words linger. They're always watching. And now you feel it, their eyes on you, weighing, judging, deciding if you're worth keeping or if the next cave-in will be your end. As the day drags on, the pit grows quieter, the prisoners too exhausted for anything but work. Your body is a ruin, your mind a haze of pain and fear. Kiros works beside you, his silence heavier now, like he's carrying something he won't share. You want to ask, but the words won't come. The sun begins to dip, casting long shadows across the quarry, and the overseers call a halt. You're herded to a rocky outcrop, given a scrap of bread and a sip of water, and left to collapse on the ground. The stone's your bed, the stars your only roof. Kiros lies nearby, his breath uneven, his eyes fixed on the sky. They're choosing tonight, he says, his voice low. Choosing who goes deeper. Deeper? You don't know what he means, but the word sends a chill through you. The quarries are bad, but deeper sounds like a death sentence. You curl up on the rocks, the ground digging into your bones, the air still heavy with dust. The prisoners around you are silent, their bodies broken, their spirits fading. Kiros's warning echoes. They're choosing tonight. You don't know what's coming, but you know it's not mercy. The quarries have already taken so much, your strength, your hope, your humanity. What's left to lose? You close your eyes, the clink of picks still ringing in your ears, and one question haunts you. How do you survive a place that's designed to kill you? Or maybe the real question is, what's waiting in the deeper dark? And can you face it? The world is no longer bright with sun or sharp with sea air. Instead, a cloying, earthy dampness wraps around you, seeping into your bones like a sickness. You jolt awake, your body curled on a bed of loose dirt, the ground soft but cold, as if it's been waiting to swallow you whole. The air is stale, heavy with the scent of mold and something sweeter, more sinister. Rot, perhaps, or the ghost of bodies long forgotten. You're not in a pit, a mill, a ship, or a quarry. This is somewhere deeper, darker, a place where light is a memory and hope is a curse. You're in the mines of Lorion, an Athenian silver mine circa 450 BCE, a labyrinth of tunnels where prisoners are sent to dig until they break. Welcome to the underworld, where the earth itself is your prison. Your hands fumble, expecting ropes or chains, but instead you find a leather strap tied around your waist, tethered to a rusty iron ring bolted into the tunnel wall. The strap is short, forcing you to crouch, your spine protesting with every movement. Your clothes are little more than scraps, caked with dirt, and your skin feels gritty, as if the mine's dust has claimed you as its own. The darkness is near absolute, broken only by the faint flicker of a single oil lamp, its flame guttering in the stale air. You hear sounds, distant clinks of picks, muffled coughs, the occasional groan of a collapsing tunnel. Your chest tightens. You're not alone, but that's no comfort. In this place, company means shared suffering, not salvation. You try to stand, but the strap yanks you back, the leather biting into your waist. Your breath catches, and you think of your modern life, late night scrolling, crowded elevators, petty dramas over who left dishes in the sink. It's laughable now, a distant dream that can't touch this suffocating reality. Here, there's no Wi-Fi, no coffee runs, just the weight of the earth above you and the certainty that it could crush you in an instant. You claw at the dirt, desperate for something to anchor you, but it crumbles under your fingers, cold and unyielding. A voice rasps nearby, dry as the dust around you. Stirring already? You're tougher than you look. You squint, making out a figure hunched against the tunnel wall, his silhouette barely human in the lamplight. He's gaunt, his skin gray with grime, his eyes like twin sparks in a face carved by hardship. "Name's Silas," he says, coughing into a filthy rag. "Been here gods who knows. Time's a liar down here." He's a miner, like you're about to be, one of the countless souls condemned to scrape silver from the earth's bowels. His hands are gnarled, fingers twisted from years of gripping tools, and he nods at the strap around your waist. "That's your leash. Don't pull too hard." Snaps, and they'll make you wish it hadn't. You want to ask where you are, what's expected, but your throat's raw, choked by the mine's dust. Before you can try, a shout echoes down the tunnel, harsh and guttural. "Up, you rats." The voice belongs to a foreman, his footsteps heavy, his lantern casting jagged shadows as he approaches. He's a brute, his tunic stained with sweat and dirt, his face a mask of indifference. He carries a short whip, its handle worn, and he swings it idly, the leather whistling through the air. "Work's waiting," he growls, kicking Silas's leg. "Move, or I'll bury you myself." Silas scrambles to his feet, wincing, and pulls you up with him. "Don't talk back," he whispers. "And don't stop. Ever." You're untethered from the wall, but not freed. The strap stays, now tied to a line of other prisoners, forcing you to shuffle in single file. The tunnel is narrow, its walls rough and slick with condensation, brushing your shoulders as you move. Your bare feet sink into the dirt, cold and clammy, and every step sends a shiver up your spine. The foreman leads you deeper, his lantern the only guide, its light barely piercing the darkness. You hear the clink of tools grow louder, the coughs more frequent, the air thicker with dust and despair. Your heart pounds, each beat a reminder that you're buried alive, the earth pressing down, waiting for you to falter. You're led to a vein of rock, its surface glinting with flecks of silver under the lamplight. Your job is to dig, to chip away at the ore with a dull pick handed to you by the foreman. You swing, the impact jarring your arms, the stone unyielding. Each strike sends a cloud of dust into your lungs, and you cough, the sound echoing in the confined space. Silas works beside you, his movements slow but precise, his face set in grim determination. "Breathe shallow," he says, his voice muffled. "Dust'll kill you faster than the whip." You try, but the air is a poison, each inhale a battle against suffocation. Your hands blister, the pick's handle slick with sweat, and the strap around your waist tugs with every movement, a constant reminder of your bondage. The hours crawl, marked only by the clink of picks and the foreman's occasional shout. Your body aches, your lungs burn, and the darkness presses in, a living thing that whispers of collapse. The other prisoners are shadows, their faces lost in the gloom, their coughs a grim chorus. You see one falter, an older man, his pick slipping as he sways. The foreman's whip cracks, catching him across the shoulders, and he falls, his cry weak, broken. The foreman doesn't stop lashing again, until the man drags himself up, blood seeping through his rags. You want to look away, to scream, but Silas's hand brushes yours, a fleeting warning. "Keep digging," he mutters, "or you're next." Let's anchor this in history. The Lorient mines were Athens' silver lifeline, funding its navy and temples. But they were a death trap for the prisoners and enslaved workers sent there. Tunnels were narrow, poorly ventilated, and prone to collapse, and the dust caused lung diseases that killed slowly but surely. Workers were expendable, replaced as fast as they fell, and foremen had no reason to care. Silver was the priority, not lives. Unlike modern prisons, even the worst, there was no oversight, no hope of release. You dug until you died, and the earth kept your secrets. Compare that to your world. Maybe you've griped about a tough job or a long day. In Lorient, a tough day meant choking on dust, praying the tunnel held, knowing it probably wouldn't. The work grinds on, the darkness unchanging, the air growing heavier. Your body is a wreck, every swing of the pick a battle against collapse. The dust is in your eyes, your nose, your throat, a second skin you can't shed. You think of home, soft lights, warm meals, the hum of a TV, and it's a knife in your gut. That life is a ghost, and you're trapped in this eternal now. Silas's voice cuts through the haze. "They're listening," he says, his pick striking the rock. "Always listening." You glance at him, confused, and he nods toward the tunnel's mouth, where the foreman's lantern glows. He's not alone. Another figure, cloaked, watches from the shadows, his face hidden. They're not just watching for work. They're choosing, picking who survives the mines and who vanishes into them. The day, though it's hard to call it that, drags on, the clink of picks a relentless pulse. Your mind phrase, the darkness playing tricks. Is that a whisper from the tunnel, or just the dust in your ears? You swing harder, desperate to drown it out, but the strap tugs, the dust chokes, and the fear grows. Then a low rumble shakes the tunnel, not loud but deep, like the earth is stirring. The prisoners pause, their picks raised, eyes wide. Gas. Silas hisses, grabbing your arm. Hold your breath. You do, your lungs burning, as a faint, sweet stench curls through the air, not rot, but something worse, a poison that could kill in moments. The foreman shouts, his voice panicked, and you're yanked back, the strap cutting into your waist as you stumble through the tunnel. Not everyone makes it. A man collapses, his coughs turning to gasps, his body still as the dust settles. You reach a wider chamber, your chest heaving, the air marginally cleaner. Silas's face is grim, his rag pressed to his mouth. Happens too often, he says, his voice low. They don't care. Silver's worth more than us. You want to scream, to run, but there's nowhere to go. The foreman's already barking orders, forcing you back to the vein. The danger dismissed. You pick up your tool, your hands trembling, and swing, the clink a mocking echo. The darkness hasn't lifted, the dust hasn't cleared, and the mines don't forgive. You're alive, but barely, and Silas's words linger. They're choosing. As the shift ends, if you can call it that, you're herded to a cramped alcove, the dirt your bed, the strap still binding you to the wall. You're given a scrap of bread and a sip of water, the taste like licking a stone. Silas sits nearby, his coughs deeper now, his eyes fixed on the lamp's dying flame. They're choosing tonight, he says, his voice barely a whisper. Choosing who goes lower. Lower? The word is a blade, cutting through your exhaustion. The mines are hell, but lower sounds like oblivion. You curl up on the dirt, the earth cold against your skin, the clink of picks still echoing in your skull. The prisoners around you are silent, their breaths uneven, their spirits crumbling. Silas's warning haunts you. They're choosing tonight. You don't know what's coming, but it's not mercy. The mines have taken your body, your hope, your future. What's left to give? You close your eyes, the darkness complete, and one question gnaws. How do you fight a prison that's alive and hungry? Or maybe the real question is, what's waiting in the lower depths? And is it worse than death? The air is sharp now, not with dust or brine, but with a biting chill that gnaws at your bones like a living thing. You wake with a gasp, your body slumped against a rough wooden post, your wrists bound behind you with frayed rope that digs into your skin. The ground beneath you is frozen mud, slick and unforgiving, sucking at your bare feet with every shift. The darkness is broken by the flicker of a bonfire, its flames casting long, twisted shadows that dance across a jagged landscape of rock and ice. You're not underground, not on a ship, not in a quarry or a mill. This is a prison camp in the far north of the Persian Empire, circa 500 BCE, a desolate outpost where the Achaemenid kings banish their enemies to freeze, toil, and fade. Welcome to a wasteland where winter is your warden and survival is a cruel joke. Your rags are thin, patched with filth, offering no protection against the wind that howls through the camp, carrying flecks of snow that sting your face like needles. Your breath clouds in front of you, each exhale a fleeting warmth that vanishes too quickly. Your body aches, knees bruised from kneeling, shoulders stiff from ropes, fingers numb from the cold. You think of your modern life, cozy blankets, steaming mugs, the hum of a heater, and it feels like a fever dream, something you'd trade your soul for. Up there, you'd complain about a chilly office or a delayed train. Down here, the cold is a predator, and you're its prey. A figure moves nearby, his silhouette hunched against the firelight. He's wrapped in tattered furs, his face half hidden by a scarf crusted with ice. Still alive, he says, his voice rough but laced with a grim amusement. Name's Rosh. Don't bother praying for warmth. Gods don't come this far north. He's a prisoner like you, a survivor of this frozen hell, his hands scarred from labor, his eyes sharp with a kind of cunning that comes from outlasting the odds. He tosses you a scrap of bread, frozen solid, its edges sharp enough to cut your gums. Chew slow, he says, or you'll choke. You catch it, your fingers trembling, and bite down, the bread cracking like ice, its taste stale and bitter. It's not sustenance, it's defiance, a reason to keep breathing. You want to ask where you are, what's next, but your teeth chatter, stealing your words. Before you can try, a horn blares, its sound low and mournful, cutting through the wind. Up, a voice bellows, belonging to a guard clad in heavy furs, his face obscured by a helmet adorned with bone. He carries a spear, its tip glinting in the firelight, and he jabs it toward the ground, herding you and the other prisoners like cattle. Arash pulls you to your feet, his grip firm despite his gaunt frame. "Move," he mutters, "or they'll make you wish you froze." You stumble forward, the ropes around your wrists forcing an awkward shuffle, the frozen mud clinging to your feet, each step a jolt of pain. You're led through the camp, a sprawl of crude tents and wooden stakes, surrounded by towering cliffs that block the sky. The wind howls, carrying the scent of smoke and decay, and the prisoners around you move in silence, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. You're not just prisoners, you're exiles, banished to this frozen edge of the world for crimes you may not even understand. The Persians used camps like this to break their enemies, not with chains, but with labor and cold, forcing them to build roads, mine salt, or carve fortresses from the rock. Your job, Arash whispers, is to haul stones, to drag boulders from the cliffs to a half-built wall that stretches into the distance. It's meaningless work, a monument to nothing, designed to crush your body and spirit. Your hand is a sled, its wood warped and heavy, its ropes frayed but strong. Your task is to load it with stones and drag it across the frozen ground to the wall, a distance that looks impossible under the gray, endless sky. You start, your hands gripping the ropes, your shoulders straining as you pull. The sled resists, its runners catching on the ice, and the stones, jagged, heavy, shift, threatening to tip. Your feet slip, the mud freezing to your skin, and the cold seeps deeper, numbing your legs, your arms, your thoughts. Arash works beside you, his breath steaming, his face set in a grimace. "Keep moving," he says. "Stop, and you're done." You pull harder, the ropes cutting into your palms, the sled inching forward, each step a battle against the cold and your own exhaustion. The hours blur, marked by the crunch of ice and the guard shouts. Your body is a furnace of pain, every muscle screaming, every breath a knife in your lungs. The other prisoners are ghosts, their movements mechanical, their faces lost in the snow. You see one falter, a young woman, her sled tipping as she collapses, her hands bloody from the ropes. The guard's spear is on her in seconds, its tip pressed to her throat. "Up," he roars, but she's too weak, her eyes fluttering shut. He kicks her, once, twice, then drags her away, her body limp against the ice. You want to scream, to help, but Arash's hand brushes yours, his voice low. "Don't look," he says. "Keep pulling." Your stomach twists, but you obey. The sled's weight your only anchor, the cold your only truth. Let's ground this in history. The Persian Empire's northern outposts were brutal exile camps, used to punish rebels, traitors, and captives by forcing them into backbreaking labor in unforgiving climates. These camps weren't prisons in the modern sense. No cells, no schedules, just endless work under the threat of death. The cold was as much a weapon as the guard spears, claiming lives through frostbite, starvation, or exhaustion. Workers built infrastructure for an empire that saw them as disposable, their labor erased by time. Unlike today's world, where even harsh prisons have some oversight, these camps answered to no one but the king, and he was far away. Compare that to your life. Maybe you've shivered through a power outage or a snowy commute. In this camp, the cold doesn't let go, and neither does the work. The day grinds on, the sky unchanging, the wind relentless. Your hands are raw, the ropes stained with your blood, and the sled feels heavier with every step. The wall looms closer, but it's a cruel illusion. Each load of stones is just a drop in an endless sea of labor. Arash's breath is ragged now, his steps slower, but he keeps moving, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "They're watching," he says, nodding toward the guards perched on a ridge, their spears glinting. "Always watching." You follow his gaze and see it, not just the guards, but a figure in richer furs, his face hidden, his presence colder than the wind. He's not enforcing work. He's choosing, deciding who endures and who disappears into the snow. As the light fades, the guards call a halt, herding you to a cluster of tents, the canvas flapping in the wind. You're given a bowl of thin gruel, its warmth fleeting. It tastes like ash. You gulp it down, your body craving anything to fight the cold. Arash sits nearby, his furs pulled tight, his eyes scanning the camp. They're choosing tonight, he says, his voice low. Choosing who builds the tower. The tower? You don't know what he means, but the word carries a weight, a promise of something worse than this. The camp is bad, but a tower sounds like a myth, a place where even the strongest break. You curl up in the tent, the frozen mud your bed, the wind your lullaby. The prisoners around you are silent, their breath shallow, their bodies trembling. Arash's warning echoes. They're choosing tonight. You don't know what's coming, but it's not mercy. The camp has taken your strength, your warmth, your will. What's left to lose? You close your eyes, the wind howling, the fire's crackle fading, and one question claws at you. How do you survive a place that freezes your soul? Or maybe the real question is, what's the tower, and can you endure its shadow? The world is no longer sharp with frost or heavy with dust. Instead, a sour, metallic tang fills your lungs, like blood mixed with ash. You wake with a jolt, your body sprawled across a bed of splintered reeds, their edges jabbing into your skin like tiny knives. The air is humid, thick with a stench of rot and human waste. So dense it feels like you're drowning in it. You're not in a pit, a mill, a ship, a quarry, a mine, or a frozen camp. This is a prison barge on the Nile, in ancient Egypt circa 1200 BCE, a floating cage under the Ramessid dynasty, where prisoners are chained to toil and decay. Welcome to a river that's both your lifeline and your executioner, where the water carries you toward a fate you can't escape. Your wrists are bound with wet, mildewed rope, the fibers slimy against your skin, biting deeper with every tug. Your clothes are little more than strips of linen, soaked with river water and sweat, clinging to your body like a second, rotting skin. The barge rocks gently, its wooden planks creaking under the weight of dozens of prisoners packed shoulder to shoulder. The Nile's surface glints beyond the barge's low rails, deceptively calm, but you know better. Crocodiles lurk beneath, their eyes like dark jewels in the water. You hear sounds, the slap of oars, the low moans of your fellow prisoners, the occasional splash of something heavy breaking the surface. Your stomach churns. This isn't just a prison. It's a trap, and you're the bait. You try to shift, to ease the ache in your spine, but the ropes pull taut, forcing you to stay hunched. Your knees are bruised from kneeling on the reeds, your shoulders stiff from the constant sway, and the humidity makes every breath feel like swallowing mud. You think of your modern life, air-conditioned rooms, iced drinks, petty gripes about a slow barista, and it's like a cruel hallucination. Up there, you'd sulk over a humid day or a crowded gym. Down here, the river's breath is a curse, wrapping you in a damp, relentless grip that promises no relief. You claw at the reeds, desperate for something dry, but they're slick, crumbling under your fingers. A voice rasps nearby, low and bitter, cutting through the barge's din, still kicking. Huh? That's a mistake. You squint, making out a figure slumped beside you, his skin sallow, his eyes sunken but glinting with a dark humor. Name's Khepri, he says, scratching at a scab on his arm. Like the scarab, but less lucky. He's a prisoner like you, a survivor of this floating hell, his hands blistered from labor, his body marked by welts from the guard's rods. He nods at the ropes around your wrists. Don't bother fighting those. Nile's hungrier than the guards. His words are a warning, but there's a grim amusement in his tone, like he's betting on how long you'll last. You want to ask what he means, but a shout splits the air, sharp and guttural. Work, you filth. The voice belongs to a guard, his kilt stained but crisp, his bald head gleaming under the sun. He carries a long reed rod, its end blackened from use, and he swings it idly, the air hissing with each pass. He strides across the barge, his sandals thudding on the planks, and the prisoners shrink back, their chains rattling. Khepri nudges you, his voice low. Move when he says, or you're crocodile food. You struggle to your feet, the ropes forcing an awkward shuffle, the reed slippery underfoot. The guard herds you toward the barge's center, where a pile of mud and straw waits, glistening under the sun. Your job is to make bricks, mix the Nile's mud with straw, shape it, set it to dry for the pharaoh's endless temples. You're handed a wooden mold, its edges warped, and pointed to the mud pile. You kneel, the reeds cutting into your knees, and start mixing, your hands sinking into the cold, slimy muck. The straw pricks your skin, the mud clogs your nails, and the weight of it strains your arms. Khepri works beside you, his movements practiced but weary, his face set in a grimace. "Keep even," he mutters. "Too wet, and they'll beat you. Too dry, and they'll beat you." You try, but the mud slips, the straw scatters, and the sun beats down, turning the barge into an oven. The hours crawl, marked by the slap of mud, and the guard shouts. Your body is a wreck, every muscle burning, every breath a struggle against the humid air. The other prisoners are shadows, their faces smeared with mud, their eyes dull. You see one falter, a boy no older than 15, his mold tipping as he sways. The guard's rod cracks, catching him across the shoulders, and he cries out, dropping to the deck. The guard doesn't stop, striking again, until the boy drags himself up, tears mixing with the mud on his face. You want to help, to scream, but Khepri's hand brushes yours, his voice urgent. "Don't look," he says. "Keep mixing." Your stomach twists, but you obey, the mud your only focus, the heat your only truth. Let's ground this in history. Ancient Egypt's labor barges were mobile prisons, used to transport prisoners along the Nile to work on monumental projects like temples and pyramids. The Ramessid period saw thousands of captives and criminals forced into brickmaking, a grueling task that broke bodies under the sun and the threat of the river's predators. Guards had little incentive to care. Pharaohs demanded results, not mercy. The Nile was both a resource and a barrier, its currents and wildlife making escape impossible. Unlike modern prisons, even the worst, there was no pretense of justice here. You were a tool, and when you wore out, the river took you. Compare that to your world. Maybe you've groaned about a sweaty workout or a long shift. On this barge, a bad day meant a rod to the back or a slip into the jaws below. The day grinds on, the sun climbing higher, the barge rocking gently. Your hands are raw, the mud caked under your nails, and the molds feel heavier with every brick. The temple's outline is distant, a cruel reminder of your labor's purpose, but it's a speck in the pharaoh's vast empire. Khepri's breath is labored now, his hands slower, but he keeps working, his eyes fixed on the mud. "They're watching," he says, nodding toward the guards perched at the barge's edge, their rods ready, their faces impassive, always watching. You follow his gaze and see it, not just the guards, but a figure in finer linen, his staff adorned with gold, his eyes scanning the workers. He's not enforcing labor. He's choosing, deciding who stays on the barge and who's sent to the kills. The work continues, the heat tightening its grip. Your mind frays, the river's murmur whispering lies. Rest, jump, let go. You mix harder, desperate to silence it. But the mud burns, the straw pricks, and the fear grows. Then a scream pierces the air, not human, but animal, a guttural bellow from the water. The prisoners freeze, their molds raised, eyes wide. A crocodile surfaces, its jaws snapping, its eyes locked on a prisoner who's strayed too close to the rail. The guards laugh, their rods raised, and the man scrambles back, his mold tumbling into the Nile. Khepri's hand steadies you, his voice urgent. "Don't move," he says. You move, your lunch. You freeze, your heart pounding. The crocodiles splash, fading as the guards drive it off with spears. As the sun dips, the guards call a halt, herding you to the barge's stern. The reeds your bed, the ropes your chains. You're given a scrap of bread and a sip of Nile water. It tastes like silt. Khepri sits nearby, his hands trembling, his eyes scanning the river. "They're choosing tonight," he says, his voice low. "Choosing who goes to the kills." The kills? The word is a blade, cutting through your exhaustion. The barge is hell, but kills sound like a furnace, a place where even the strongest burn. You curl up on the reeds, the Nile's murmur in your ears, the prisoner's moans your lullaby. Kepri's warning echoes. They're choosing tonight. You don't know what's coming, but it's not mercy. The barge has taken your strength, your hope, your breath. What's left to lose? You close your eyes, the river's sway rocking you, and one question claws at you. How do you survive a prison that feeds on you? Or maybe the real question is, what's waiting in the kills? And can you withstand the fire? The air is no longer thick with river damp or sharp with frost. Instead, it's dry and acrid, laced with the bitter sting of smoke and molten metal. You wake with a choke, your body slumped against a rough basalt slab, your wrist shackled to iron rings embedded in the stone. The ground beneath you is scorched earth, littered with ash that crunches under your weight, each grain biting into your bare soles. The heat is oppressive, not from the sun, but from a pulsing, unnatural source that seems to radiate from the earth itself. You're not on a barge, in a pit, a mill, a ship, a quarry, a mine, or a frozen camp. This is a foundry prison in ancient Assyria, circa 700 BCE. A hell forge where prisoners are chained to craft weapons for an empire's endless wars. Welcome to a place where fire is your master and every breath burns. Your rags are singed, blackened at the edges, barely clinging to your sweat-slick skin. The shackles are hot, their metal warmed by the ambient heat, biting into your wrists with every twitch. Your throat is raw, each inhale tasting of ash and iron, as if you're swallowing the forge's heart. The world around you is a chaos of red and black, towering furnaces roaring with flame, their mouths glowing like hungry beasts, anvils ringing under hammer strikes, and prisoners, their faces smudged with soot, moving like ghosts in the haze. You hear sounds, the bellows hiss, the clang of metal, the guttural shouts of overseers barking orders. Your heart pounds, a drumbeat against the forge's pulse. This isn't just a prison. It's a crucible, and you're the raw material. You try to shift, to ease the strain in your arms, but the shackles hold firm, forcing you to stay hunched, your shoulders screaming. The basalt slab is warm, almost alive, leeching what little strength you have. You think of your modern life, cool offices, iced lattes, petty rants about a broken AC, and it's like a fevered mirage. Up there, you'd grumble over a hot car or a crowded bar. Down here, the heat is a predator, searing your skin, your lungs, your will. You claw at the ash, desperate for something cool, but it's like grabbing embers, stinging your fingers with tiny, cruel bites. A voice cuts through the din, rough and mocking, like gravel underfoot. Still got breath in you? Pity. You squint, making out a figure leaning against a nearby anvil, his arms crossed, his face half hidden by a soot-stained cloth. He's wiry, his skin marked with burn scars, his eyes glinting with a mix of exhaustion and defiance. Name's Tyglath, he says, wiping sweat from his brow. Welcome to the fire. Don't expect it to be kind. He's a prisoner like you, a survivor of this molten hell, his hands calloused from hammer and tongs, his body a map of the forge's cruelty. He tosses you a scrap of bread, charred at the edges, its texture like stone. Eat, he says. You'll need it to scream later. You catch it, your fingers trembling, and bite down, the bread crumbling into ash in your mouth, its taste a bitter echo of the forge. You want to ask what he means, but a bellow splits the air, loud enough to shake the slab beneath you. To the anvils. The voice belongs to an overseer, his tunic fire-resistant but stained, his beard singed at the tips. He carries a bronze-tipped prod, its end glowing faintly, and he swings it with purpose, the air hissing as it passes. He strides through the foundry, his boots crunching ash, and the prisoners scramble, their chains rattling. Tyglath pulls you up as your shackles are unlocked from the slab, though they stay on your wrists, now tethered to a long chain linking you to other workers. Move, he mutters, or you'll burn before you work. You stumble after him, the chain dragging, the scorched earth searing your feet, each step a jolt of pain. You're led to a massive anvil, its surface pitted from countless strikes, surrounded by glowing furnaces that pulse like living things. Your job is to forge, hammer molten bronze into spearheads for the Assyrian army. You're handed a heavy hammer, its handle wrapped in leather, its head blackened from use. The bronze is brought red-hot, hissing as it's placed on the anvil by another prisoner. You swing, the impact jarring your arms, sending sparks flying that sting your skin like angry wasps. The metal resists each strike of battle, and the heat from the furnaces wraps around you, a suffocating embrace. Tiglath works beside you, his hammer steady, his face set in a grimace. "Hit true," he says. "Miss, and they'll make you regret it." You try, but the hammer's weight pulls at your shoulders, the sparks burn, and the chain tugs with every swing, a constant reminder of your bondage. The hours melt into a haze of fire and pain, marked by the clang of hammers and the overseer shouts. Your body is a furnace of agony, every muscle straining, every breath a scalding gulp of ash. The other prisoners are silhouettes in the smoke, their faces lost, their movements mechanical. You see one falter, a man whose hammer slips, sending a spearhead clattering to the ground. The overseer's prod is on him in seconds, its glowing tip pressed to his back, and he screams, the smell of burning flesh cutting through the forge's stench. The overseer doesn't stop until the man drags himself up, his skin blistered, his eyes wild with pain. You want to look away, to scream, but Tiglath's hand brushes yours, his voice low. "Keep hammering," he says, "or you're next." Your stomach twists, but you swing. The anvil's ring your only anchor, the heat your only truth. Let's ground this in history. Assyrian foundry prisons were brutal labor camps, where prisoners and captives were forced to produce weapons and tools for the empire's relentless military campaigns. The work was lethal. Burns, smoke inhalation, and exhaustion claimed lives daily, and overseers cared only for output, not survival. The furnaces were stoked day and night, the heat unrelenting, and escape was impossible. Surrounded by guarded walls and hostile lands, prisoners had nowhere to run. Unlike modern prisons, even the harshest, there was no pretense of reform here. You were a cog in the war machine, and when you broke, the forge consumed you. Compare that to your world. Maybe you've griped about a stressful deadline or a hot kitchen. In this foundry, a bad day meant a prod's burn or a collapse into the flames. The work grinds on, the furnaces never cooling, the anvils never silent. Your hands are blistered, the hammer's handle slick with sweat, and the chain feels heavier with every strike. The spearheads pile up, each one a testament to your suffering, but they're a drop in the empire's arsenal. Tiglath's breath is ragged now, his swing slower, but he keeps hammering, his eyes fixed on the anvil. They're watching, he says, nodding toward the overseers, circling the foundry, their prods glowing, their faces unreadable. Always watching. You follow his gaze and see it, not just the overseers, but a figure in a hooded cloak, his presence heavy, his eyes scanning the workers. He's not enforcing work. He's choosing, deciding who stays at the anvils and who's sent to the smelters. The forging continues, the heat tightening its grip. Your mind frays, the furnaces roar whispering lies. Rest, drop the hammer, let go. You swing harder, desperate to silence it, but the sparks burn, the chain tugs, and the fear grows. Then a scream splits the air, raw and guttural, as a prisoner stumbles into a furnace's mouth, his arm catching fire. The overseers shout, pulling him back, but his screams don't stop, his skin blackened, his body thrashing. The other prisoners keep hammering, their eyes averted, their fear a palpable thing. Tiglath's hand steadies you, his voice urgent. "Don't stop," he says. You stop, you're him. You swing, your heart pounding. The man screams, fading as the overseers drag him away. His fate a mystery you don't want to unravel. As the day, or is it night, fades, the overseers call a halt, herding you to a corner of the foundry, the ash your bed, the chains your blanket. You're given a scrap of bread and a sip of water. Its taste like molten iron. Tyglath sits nearby, his hands trembling, his eyes scanning the furnace's glow. They're choosing tonight, he says, his voice low. Choosing who goes to the smelters. The smelters? The word is a blade, cutting through your exhaustion. The foundry is hell, but smelters sound like annihilation, a place where even the strongest melt. You curl up in the ash, the heat still radiating. The furnaces roar your lullaby. Tyglath's warning echoes. They're choosing tonight. You don't know what's coming, but it's not mercy. The foundry has taken your strength, your breath, your hope. What's left to lose? You close your eyes, the clang of anvils ringing in your ears, and one question claws at you. How do you survive a prison that burns you alive? Or maybe the real question is, what's waiting in the smelters? And can you face the fire's heart? The wind screams past your ears like a curse, carrying a salty tang, so sharp it stings your nose like a blade. You cling to a jagged outcrop on a sheer cliff face, heart pounding, body pressed against the rock to keep from being torn away by the gusts into the abyss below. The sea roars, waves crashing against the cliff's base with a force that feels like it could rip the island apart. You're not in a moldy dungeon, a blazing forge, a drifting river barge, or a suffocating mine. This is a cliffside cage on Crete, circa 1400 BCE, a Minoan punishment site where prisoners are left dangling between sky and sea, exposed to nature's cruelty. Welcome to a prison without walls, where the wind is your jailer and the void your judge. Your ankles are bound with leather straps, stiff and crusted with sea salt, chafing your skin raw with every twitch, burning like a lick of flame. The straps are tied to a rusted bronze stake driven deep into the cliff, just long enough to let you move, but too short to stand upright. Your clothes are mere rags, soaked with seawater, clinging to your battered body, flapping in the wind as if trying to drag you into the deep. The air is frigid, but it's the wind that's truly brutal, whipping your face, stealing your breath, making your eyes sting. The roar of the waves mixes with the cries of gulls circling above like vultures, and somewhere, the creak of wooden scaffolds swaying precariously. Your heart races, each beat a reminder of the drop just inches away. This isn't just a prison. It's a gamble, and losing means obliteration. You try to shift, to ease the ache in your back, but the cliff is unforgiving, its surface slick with sea spray, forcing you to grip tight to avoid slipping. Your spine groans, fingers numb from clawing at the rock, and the wind snatches your breath, each gust a slap to the face. You think of modern life, plush sofas, cold drinks, petty complaints about drizzle or traffic, and it feels like a lavish dream, something you'd trade your life for. In that world, you'd grumble about a damp day or a crowded bus. Here, the wind is your enemy, and the abyss is the only truth. You scrape at the rock, desperate for something to hold onto, but its sharp edges cut your hands, cold and merciless. A raspy voice cuts through the wind's howl. Haven't fallen yet? Gutsy. You squint, spotting a figure clinging to the cliff a few meters away, gaunt, hair tangled like seaweed, eyes glinting with a mix of weariness and defiance. Name's Phaedrus, he says, voice dripping with sarcasm. Call me the survivor, if you're feeling poetic. He's a prisoner like you, a sailor once adrift on the seas, now tethered to this cliff, his hands scarred from gripping stone, his body etched with marks of wind and salt. He tosses you a chunk of dry bread, crusted with sand, hard as rock. Eat, he says. You'll need strength to keep from dropping. You catch it, hands trembling, and bite down, sand grinding between your teeth, the salty taste nauseating. This isn't food, it's resolve, a reason to keep breathing. You want to ask where you are, what's happening, but the wind drowns your voice, your throat parched as a desert. Before you can try, a shrill whistle pierces the air, sharp enough to tear through the gale. Work, a voice bellows, belonging to a guard perched on a ledge above, his leather cloak flapping, hand gripping a long whip laced with thorns. He points down, eyes cold as the sea, and other prisoners, shadows clinging to the cliff, start moving. slow but deliberate. Phaedrus yanks you up, his grip tight on your arm. Hold on, he whispers. Slip and you're gone. You shuffle forward, the leather straps pulling taut, the slick cliff treacherous under your bare feet. Each step a jolt of pain. You're led to a wooden scaffold, dangling from the cliff, creaking in the wind. Its ropes frayed and worn. Your task is to repair it, retie ropes, replace rotten planks, reinforce beams to keep the scaffold from collapsing. This is Minoan work, maintaining high-altitude ports for their seafaring empire. But for you, it's a game of survival. You're handed a coil of coarse rope and a plank, both heavy, dragging your shoulders down. You start, hands gripping the scaffold, wind battering you, waves roaring below like they're hungry for you. Phaedrus works beside you, movement slow but steady, face set in a grimace. Tie tight, he says. One loose knot, and you're flying with the wind. You try, but the rope cuts your hands, the wood slips, and the wind never stops, as if testing your will to live. Time drags on, measured by the wind's howl and the waves' roar. Your body is wrecked, every move a battle against the cliff and nature. The other prisoners move like phantoms, faces pale, eyes vacant. You see one slip, a young woman, her rope slipping from her grasp, the scaffold lurching. The guard's whip cracks, thorns biting her back, and she screams, scrambling to hold on, blood streaming. He doesn't stop lashing again, until she drags herself back, tears mixing with salt spray. You want to help, to yell, but Phaedrus's gaze locks onto you, unyielding. Keep working, he says. Look, and you're dead. Your stomach twists, but you tie the rope. The scaffold your only focus, the wind your only truth. Let's pause to ground this in history. The Minoans, with their vibrant maritime civilization, used Crete's cliffs as punishment sites, suspending prisoners to maintain high-altitude ports or signal posts. The work was deadly. Wind, waves, and height were silent killers, and guards cared little for lives. Escape was impossible. The sea was a wall, the cliff a blade. Unlike modern prisons, even the harshest, there was no intent to reform. You were a tool, and when you fell, the sea claimed you. Compare that to modern life. Maybe you've griped about a windy day or a stressful job. Here, a bad day is a slip, and a slip is death. The work stretches on, the wind unrelenting, the scaffold groaning. Your hands bleed, the rope soaked with sweat, each not a trial. Phaedrus pants, but keeps going, eyes fixed on the rope. They're watching, he says, nodding toward the guard on the ledge, thorned whip ready, face stone cold. Always watching. You follow his gaze and see, not just the guard, but a figure in a red cloak, standing silent, eyes scanning the prisoners. He's not overseeing work. He's choosing, deciding who stays on the cliff and who's cast into the void. The labor continues, the wind tightening its grip. Your mind frays, the waves whispering lies. Rest, let go, fall. You tie harder, try to drown them out, but the rope cuts, the wood sways, and the fear grows. Then a crack splits the air, not wood, but stone. A chunk of the cliff breaks free, taking a prisoner with it. He screams, hands flailing, but the wind is too strong, and he's gone. His cry swallowed by the waves. The guard laughs, whip cracking the air, and the other prisoners keep working. Eyes down, fear a living thing. Phaedrus grips your arm, voice urgent. Don't stop, he says. Stop and you fall. You tie, heart pounding, the man's scream echoing in your head. His fate a mystery you don't want to unravel. As the light fades, the guard calls a halt, shoving you into a rocky crevice, the leather straps still binding you. You're given a scrap of bread and a sip of briny water, tasting like the sea's depths. Phaedrus sits nearby, hands trembling, eyes locked on the darkness. They're choosing tonight, he whispers, choosing who goes to the dark hollow. The dark hollow? The words are a blade, slicing through your exhaustion. The cliff is already hell, but the dark hollow sounds like oblivion, a place even the strongest vanish into. You huddle in the crevice, the rock icy, the waves your lullaby. Phaedrus's warning echoes. They're choosing tonight. You don't know what's coming, but it's not mercy. The cliff has taken your strength, your breath, your hope. What's left to lose? You close your eyes, the wind howling in your ears, and one question gnaws. How do you survive a prison that wants you to fall? Or maybe the real question is, what's the dark hollow? And can you face its shadows? The air is thick with the scent of ancient dust and something sharper, like charred bone mixed with bitter herbs. You jolt awake, your body slumped against a rough stone slab, its surface etched with spiraling runes that seem to pulse under the dim flicker of braziers. Your wrists are unbound, but your ankles are tethered to the floor by thin, sinewy cords that bite into your skin, flexible yet unyielding, like the tendons of some long-dead beast. The chamber around you is vast yet claustrophobic, its walls carved with grotesque faces that stare down, their hollow eyes glinting in the firelight. You're not in a pit, a mill, a ship, a quarry, a mine, a frozen camp, a barge, a forge, or a cliffside cage. This is an Etruscan necropolis prison, circa 600 BCE, a subterranean tomb beneath the hills of ancient Italy, where prisoners are fodder for rituals to appease vengeful gods. Welcome to a prison where death is the currency, and you're the offering. Your clothes are tattered, a patchwork of linen and filth, clinging to your sweat-slick skin. The air is cool but heavy, each breath tasting of ash and decay, as if the tomb is exhaling its secrets into your lungs. The silence is oppressive, broken only by the faint hum of distant chants and the occasional clink of metal from unseen corners. Your heart pounds, a frantic rhythm against the stillness. You're not just a prisoner. You're a sacrifice, trapped in a place where the living are merely guests of the dead. You try to move, but the cords at your ankles pull taut, forcing you to hunch, your spine aching, your legs trembling. You think of modern life, soft beds, warm coffee, petty complaints about a late bus. And it's a cruel mirage, a world you can't touch. In that life, you'd moan about a cold office or a long queue. Here, the tomb's embrace is your reality, and it's squeezing tight. A voice slithers through the darkness, low and smooth, like oil over stone. Still clinging to life? Admirable, but pointless. You squint, making out a figure leaning against a carved pillar, her silhouette sharp despite the gloom. She's tall, her hair a cascade of dark braids, her eyes gleaming with a mix of pity and amusement. "Name's Valia," she says, her voice laced with bitter humor. Once a seer, now a pawn in their games. She's a prisoner like you, caught in this necropolis for defying the priests, her hands marked with ritual scars, her presence a flicker of defiance in this dead place. She tosses you a small clay cup, its contents a murky liquid that smells of herbs and rust. "Drink," she says. "It'll dull the pain, not the fear." You hesitate, but your parched throat wins, and you gulp it down, the bitter taste coating your tongue like regret. You want to ask what she means, but a low chant swells, vibrating through the stone, making your bones hum. "Prepare," a voice booms belonging to a priest clad in black robes, his face hidden by a mask of polished bone, its eye sockets empty yet piercing. He carries a curved dagger, its blade etched with runes, and moves with a predator's grace. The other prisoners, shadows in the gloom, shrinking back. Valia pulls you to your feet, her grip firm but trembling. "Don't resist," she whispers. "It only sharpens their blades." The cords at your ankles are cut, but you're not free. You're herded with other prisoners toward a massive altar at the chamber's heart, its surface slick with dark stains that gleam in the firelight. Your task is to prepare for the ritual, polish the altar, arrange offerings of bones and herbs, light the braziers with trembling hands. The priests believe the gods demand blood to keep the dead at bay, and you're part of the offering, whether you survive or not. You scrub the altar, it's stone cold and unyielding, the stains smearing under your rag, each stroke a reminder of what's coming. The chants grow louder, a rhythmic pulse that drills into your skull, and the air thickens with incense, its acrid sweetness choking you. Velia works beside you, her movements precise but strained, her face a mask of grim focus. "Don't look the priests," she mutters. "And don't think about the knife." You try, but the altar stains are everywhere, the braziers flare, and the cord's memory lingers, a promise of your fate. The hours blur, marked by the chants and the priest's commands. Your body is a ruin, hands raw from scrubbing, lungs burning from the incense, mind fraying under the weight of fear. The other prisoners are ghosts, their faces pale, their movements mechanical. You see one falter, a boy barely grown, his hands shaking as he drops a bone offering. The priest's dagger flashes, not cutting, but pressing to his throat, and he whimpers, collapsing. The priest doesn't strike again, just drags him into the shadows, his cries drowned by the chants. You want to scream, to run, but Velia's hand brushes yours, her voice urgent. "Keep moving," she says, "or you're next." Your stomach churns, but you scrub, the altar your only anchor, the chants your only truth. Let's ground this in history. The Etruscans, with their complex religious practices, used necropolis prisons to hold prisoners for rituals, believing the gods required offerings to maintain cosmic balance. These tombs weren't just jails, they were stages for sacrifice, where captives and outcasts were forced to prepare their own doom. The work was as psychological as it was physical, breaking spirits with the constant threat of death. Escape was impossible. The labyrinthine tombs were guarded by zealous priests, and the surrounding hills offered no refuge. Unlike modern prisons, there was no hope of reform. You served the gods until they claimed you. Compare that to today. Maybe you've grumbled about a tough boss or a long shift. Here, a bad day means a dagger's edge, and there's no clocking out. The ritual preparations drag on, the chants a relentless tide. Your hands tremble, the rags soaked with sweat and blood, and the altar feels heavier with every pass. Velia's breath is shallow, her eyes darting to the priests. "They're choosing," she says, nodding toward the masked figures circling the chamber, their daggers glinting. "Always choosing." You follow her gaze and see, not just the priests, but a figure in richer robes, his mask adorned with gold, his presence colder than the stone. He's not directing the ritual. He's selecting, deciding who lives through the night and who becomes the offering. The tension builds, the chants reaching a fever pitch, the braziers flaring as if fed by blood. Your mind frays, the incense whispering lies. Rest, surrender, let go. You scrub harder, desperate to silence it. But the stains spread, the cord's memory burns, and the fear consumes you. Then the climax erupts, a scream, not from a prisoner, but from Velia. She's grabbed by a priest, her rag falling, her eyes wide with terror. "Not me," she cries, struggling, but the priest's dagger is at her throat, and the other prisoners freeze, their work halting. The gold-masked figure steps forward, raising a hand, and the chants stop, the silence deafening. "Choose," he says, his voice a low rumble, addressing you. "Her life or yours. One must feed the gods." The mouth Wan Chin, your struggle to survive these merciless prisons, crashes into focus. Every moment in this series, from the Tullianum's chains to the cliffside's winds, has been a fight against impossible odds, but now survival demands a moral price. You stare at Velia, her eyes pleading, her defiance crumbling. You could point to her, let the dagger take her, and buy yourself another day. Or you could offer yourself, ending the cycle of torment but sealing your fate. The prisoners watch, their faces blank, their silence a judgment. The priests wait, the dagger poised, the gods' hunger palpable. Your body trembles, your heart screams, and the choice burns. Betray Velia or betray yourself. You hesitate, and Velia's voice breaks through, barely a whisper. "Don't," she says, not pleading, but warning. "You'll never escape the guilt." Her words hit like a stone, and you realize the truth. Surviving here isn't living. Every prison, the pits, the mines, the cliffs, has stripped you of strength, hope, humanity. To survive by sacrificing another is to become the prison itself, a hollow shell serving the gods' endless appetite. You shake your head, stepping forward, your voice hoarse but steady. Take me. The gold-masked priest tilts his head, as if amused, and the dagger shifts toward you. Valia's eyes widen, but she says nothing, her silence a mix of relief and sorrow. The priest sees you, dragging you to the altar, the cords at your ankles snapping, as if the tomb itself releases you. The chants resume, louder, triumphant, and the braziers flare, their heat licking your skin. You're forced to kneel, the altar's stains beneath you, the dagger raised above. Your mind races, images of chains, flames, waves, and cliffs flash by, each prison a proof that survival was never the point. You've endured, but at what cost? The Etruscan gods don't care, and neither do the priests. You've learned why surviving here is impossible, because the prison doesn't just break your body, it devours your soul. As the dagger descends, you close your eyes, the chants a deafening roar, the tomb's shadows swallowing you. But the blade doesn't strike. The chants falter, and you're shoved back, the priests turning away, their ritual complete, not with blood, but with your choice. You've given them what they wanted, your surrender, your proof that no one leaves unbroken. Valia is gone, spirited away, and you're left alone, the cords retied, the altar still stained. You collapse, the stone cold, the braziers dimming, and the realization sinks in, you're alive, but you're not free. The necropolis has won, as every prison before it did. You curl up, the tomb's silence your only companion, the weight of your choice crushing you. How long can you carry the guilt of survival when it costs another's life? Or maybe the real question is, what's left of you when the gods have taken everything? As the braziers flicker out, one thought lingers. You've seen why ancient prisons were worse than death, and now you're part of their legacy. So, pull that blanket tight, let the darkness cradle you, and sleep well, if you can. Good night, my friend, and may your dreams be kinder than this tomb's embrace.